him, the first incarnation of the band
Yeah.
was in 1991, I believe. You were like 14, 15 years old.
Around that, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So how would you describe yourself at that point?
I was into like Bad Brains and Jane's Addiction. I had, I guess, orange dreadlocks. I was skating, and I had just played my first paying gigs as a bass player. And I got like $20 and 3 pints of beer. That was my first fee.
That's not bad for back then. That's not bad for now, really.
It was great.
Yeah.
And, but that's how it all started. And then at the same time, I was playing bass with a lot of bands in Helsinki. Since that was my first instrument, and I was a huge fan, I still am a huge fan of Gene Simmons and Steve Harris and all those people. And yet I wanted to try to sing, and then, so we had the first hymn was me playing 6-string bass. I was doing all the guitar parts, like through guitar amplifiers. It sounded terrible, kind of like a cool idea at the time, but we couldn't find a guitar player, so I did that. And then Miguel, the guy who was still in the band, he was playing the bass, and then we had 2 other drummers, and we tried a couple of guitar players as well, but it wasn't professional in any, anyhow. We were doing a couple of 4-track set demos and whatnot in the garage, but it took a few years more for us to kind of start working on it a bit more proper.
Yeah, of course, with most bands, I would.
Yeah, sure.
Getting into the groove of it from
yeah,
high
and
school
also being
onwards.
pushed by the parents and stuff. You either got to start like really studying something proper to become something, and that's usually when you have to shut the door and practice your instrument a bit more.
Yeah, and I saw online that in the beginning stages you had 2 drummers at the same time. Is that right?
Well, kind of, yeah. To be honest with you, I can't remember that well. It was like, yeah, no, you might be. Are you talking about that was in school, the band that we had 2 drummers. The other guy that was a great drummer at rehearsals, but he was so scared of playing live that we needed to have another one who was a terrible drummer, but he wasn't like scared of audience.
So he was the session guy, basically?
Kind of, yeah. So, but not with him, it was a bit different. We just had 2 guys who showed up, when they had the time. Cool. It was one of those things, we were so young and there was many other things to do in life, so it wasn't, people weren't as intense about it maybe than I was with my 6-string bass and my orange dreadlocks. No wonder they didn't want to rehearse more. Imagine hanging out with that monster.
Yeah, and I think a good part of your formative years that a lot of people are fascinated by is your father's sex shop.
Oh,
and you working there. And I'm wondering, how did that play a part in shaping you as an individual?
Yeah, it shaped the bottom end.
The bottom end.
No, I don't think so. It's like my dad helped me out with the rent when I moved out. I think I was 17, or just turning 17, and he helped me out to find a little apartment, and then I had to, give back. So I went there to sell, vibrators and such, which was, it was just a job. It wasn't exciting or nerve-wracking. It was just a job, just something to do, something to pass the time with.
Would your friends kind of go by and be like really inquisitive about what goes on?
Yeah, but they were laughing about it. Good friends would come there because it was a good excuse to hang out in a temple of pornography. So I thought that was more like it was more fun than something that we would have been ashamed of.
Yeah, so no weird shit happening with friends.
Not really.
It's a classy joint. Sounds like.
Yeah, and one of the only things in life, in this whole world that does, we do have something in common. Religion aside and stuff, but we do have like peckers and stuff.
That's very true. So they say that you have your whole life to write your first album, and for him, going from 1991, 6 years later, you've got Greatest Love Songs. Volume 666. So for that, what pieces of your life did you throw into that album's material?
To be honest with you, it takes a lot of time for a band to find their own sound, and it's, gig a bit.
Yeah.
And it's really tough to find gigs when nobody knows you and you haven't recorded an album. So that's the tough part. So we're playing all sorts of little parties. We could get Miguel's big brother. He owned a bar. Was like the co-owner of a club in Helsinki, and a bar. So we were able to kind of like squeeze our way in to play a few shows, here and there, even though people didn't want to see us. But it is very different for a band when they get the adrenaline in your body. You know, it changes the perception of your own music as well. And at that time, and you need to see the audience to be able to make the right calls arrangement-wise and tempo-wise, you know.
Yeah.
It might be just a couple of beats per minute here and there, but that makes all the difference how people's hips sway or if they don't. So that's important, and that's something you can't do these days anymore because people are recording all the gigs. Back in the day, they weren't. There was no cell phones with cameras or whatnot.
No.
It's those old Nokia bricks, you know. They're really cool these days, though.
You put it in a suitcase and you carry it around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
with the cocaine.
Yes, perfect.
DeLorean type stuff.
Yeah, 88 miles an hour.
Exactly.
So up until this point, him kind of had somewhat of a rotating line of members.
Sure.
You and Linda were the...
And Miguel. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Miguel did leave for a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, I was going through the, what do you call it, military service.
Really?
You have to do in Finland is like, 8 months, 9 months. So it was away because of that.
Oh, wow.
And, but we were still searching. So that was time and a bit of hassle. And also, again, I think that it's a fine line when a band becomes an obsession and when it becomes a job as well. Kind of like something that should be taken a bit more serious. It's really tough to find, let's say, 5 people who would be as into in having a band and really spending time. You know, for a lot of people, it's just a cool way to get drunk or just do something different or again kill the time. So that's usually how a lot of bands have the trouble the first years or the first months.
Yeah.
It's more, everybody's searching for themselves. Not just the sound, it's just also just to hang out together and be in a small van together and see if you really can stand each other's farts or not. Because that's very essential.
In the beginning especially, obviously. And you can't just make music with anyone, especially when you're writing original stuff and you're trying to take it seriously.
Yeah, but then again, you can't take it too seriously. At the same time, you have to sort of like, and that's the tough part, to know when to cry and when to laugh. We still don't, but
Well, I think that's a good dynamic of what him really is: the crying, laughing, the good and evil, bad and good.
Well, it remains to be seen. It's not over yet.